Okay, so today for social studies, we are going to preview the chapter that we're about to read, and we're going to use an acronym called THIEVES. And good readers always start by looking at the title, and we look at all the headings, the introduction in each section, every first sentence in each paragraph, visuals and vocab, ending questions, and the summary of the lesson. So that's what we're going to do today. So at the top of your small whiteboard, write down the acronym THIEVES. Okay, now we'll take a look at the lesson that we're going to be reading today in social studies, and the lesson is Coal, a Buried Treasure. So the first thing I want to look at is the title. Looking at the title, what do you predict this lesson is going to be about?
Coal.
Okay, and next let's look at the headings in each part of the lesson. So what's the first heading?
Deep in the ground.
Deep in the ground. What do you predict we'll learn in this section of the lesson?
Where coal is found.
Okay, so let's go ahead and write that down underneath headings. Where coal is found. Okay, take a look at the next heading above the graphic. What does that say?
How coal is formed.
So we can also add that to headings, because we'll be learning about how coal is formed. Okay, let's flip the page. The next heading is
a difficult job.
Okay, so what do you think we'll be learning about in this section?
Coal miners.
All right, so go ahead and write that down underneath headings. And let's see, the next one is miners form a union, so we'll write that down underneath headings. What about dangers underground? What do you think that means?
That it could be hot and that things can cave in on them.
Okay, so let's go ahead and write that down underneath headings also. Okay, and the last heading on page 91 is mining technology. What kinds of things do you expect to learn when we read this section?
The tools that they use to get coal.
Okay, very good. So let's write that down too. All right, the next thing we're going to look at is the introduction. So let's flip back to the beginning. The introduction, where it says read aloud. The introduction is on the first page where it says read aloud, and then the big picture. Why don't you read the first paragraph?
Coal miners use one of the resources of the southeast to make a living. Who else uses resources? Farmers use the rich soil. Factory workers use the forests of pine trees to make paper, furniture, and other products.
Okay, so based on the paragraph you just read in the introduction, what do you think this lesson is going to be about?
The variety of things that coal can be used for.
Okay, let's go ahead and write that down underneath introduction. All right. The next thing we're going to take a look at is every sentence in the first paragraph. So we already read the introduction, so let's skip to the next section. Go ahead and read that first sentence.
Coal is a black or brown mineral found in the ground.
All right, so that's the definition of coal. So maybe underneath every sentence in the first paragraph, you can just write definition of coal. Okay. About the next paragraph.
The coal industry grew very slowly in this country until the 1830s.
All right, so what information there do you think we should put underneath?
The history of coal.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, let's move on to the next section. Go ahead and read the first sentence here underneath dangers underground.
For many years, coal miners worked long hours in cramped underground tunnels.
All right. So this kind of correlates with the bullet point that you wrote in the last section, that coal can be used, oh, no, it was in the first section underneath headings, that it can be hot and dangerous. So maybe underneath the first sentence, you can write down dangers of coal mining. We know that we'll go cover that in this section. All right, let's move on to the next section.
In 1890, miners all over the country formed a labor union.
All right, so we don't have to be real specific. You can just jot down little notes. So what do you want to write there?
Labor union,
okay,
because it's in blue.
Perfect. And I like that you noticed that the term was in blue. And those are going to be our vocabulary terms, and we'll go over that in a minute. So the next section is a coal miner.
Coal mining has changed since the early 1900s.
All right. What do you want to write down there?
How mining is different.
Perfect. All right, and we'll stop there because the next section is mining technology, and that's going to go along with how mining is different, so we can just leave that for both of those. The next thing we're going to take a look at is the V, and the V in THIEVE stands for visuals and vocabulary. So we're going to start at the beginning of the lesson and preview all of the visual aids, the graphics and the photographs. So what do you notice on this page?
There's a picture of coal, and it looks like someone shoveling it.
Okay. All right, now let's take a look at the next page.
It's highlighting where coal is found in the southeast in the U.S.
All right, what color indicates where coal is found?
Red.
Which states contain coal mines?
We have West Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, and a little bit in a couple other states there. Those are the major ones.
All right. What do you notice right below that graphic? Right below the map?
These pictures here are showing different layers of the earth, and at the bottom one it's showing you where coal is formed.
Okay, so we know that in this section we'll learn how coal is formed, and we'll learn about the different layers of earth. All right, let's flip to the next section. What about these photographs?
This one looks very old. You can tell because it's black and white. And the caption says that there's young boys that worked in coal mines.
What about the next page?
It looks more recent because this photograph's black and white and this one's color, and it looks like there's more technology compared to this one.
Very good. All right, so what are some notes that you want to jot down underneath visuals? What did you notice about the photographs? I like that you compared the black and white photograph to the color photograph, and you noticed that it looked like there was more current technology.
That kids used to work.
Okay. That sounds good.
In coal mines. And that there's more technology to help workers today.
Sounds good. All right. Okay. The V also stands for vocabulary, so I'm going to flip back to the beginning of the lesson, and I want you to point out the vocabulary terms to me.
Industry, coal, labor union, technology.
Very good. If we wanted to look up the definitions for the vocabulary, where would we look in the book besides in the paragraphs?
In the back of the book, in the glossary.
In the glossary. What else could we use? If there wasn't a glossary, we could read the sentence, and we could use what to try and figure out what the term means.
We can use the words in the paragraph to help us figure it out.
Very good. All right, so then the last E stands for ending questions. So we're going to flip to the last part of the lesson, and at the very back of the book, it asks some questions. Go ahead and read the first one.
Is coal a renewable resource? Explain your answer.
All right, so since we don't know yet, and we still have to read, why don't you just write that question down? Is coal a renewable resource? Another one of the ending questions is, what role does coal play in the Southeast economy? So you could just jot down a note there. Okay. And the last one we'll look at is name some of the difficulties faced by coal miners of the early 1900s. The last thing we're going to look at in the acronym is the last S, which stands for summary. And if you look in the back of your lesson, at the very end of the lesson, it shows you the main ideas. So we talked about this in the beginning when I was asking you to predict what you thought you were going to read about in each section. Let's take a look at this section and compare it to what your predictions were. The first one says, coal is an important natural resource of the Southeast. We did talk about it being a resource. And let's see.
It said where coal is found.
Where coal is found. Coal can be used for a variety of things, so that connects to that main idea. The second one was miners around the country organized a union to gain better pay and working conditions. And I think you wrote something down about a union. Okay, very good. Underneath every sentence. And the last main idea was coal supplies more than half our country's electricity. I'm not sure if that could be related to economy in the last section. So what we're going to use this for, and you can skip this one, we don't have to write down all those questions since they're right here for you. But we'll preview this, and then we'll compare it to your classmates' notes, and then we'll use this as we're reading and compare what you've read to what the information that you wrote down here.